This is the second part of the series on Jonah, and it's called The Belly of the Fish. When your options run out and you're cut off from others, either in a jail cell or isolated on the street because you've used up all your friends and family, you are in the belly of the fish. This is a time of loneliness, loss, and regret. You have no power to get yourself out. You're stuck. What realization a person comes to, if any, determines the course of your life. Either you come out of the belly of the fish and stay out, or come out only to repeat the cycle again. Let's take a look at what Jonah did when he was cut off from everyone with no hope. Then Jonah prayed unto the Lord his God out of the fish's belly, and said, I cried by reason of mine affliction unto the Lord, and he heard me. Out of the belly of hell cried I, and thou heardst my voice. That's in Jonah Chapter 2, verses 1 and 2. Prayer is the only option left when all else is gone. Like any man, Jonah availed himself of it. Prayer has a way of pushing aside seething self-pity and resentment. But like any inclination of the flesh, self-pity will fight to stay. Jonah has a lot to feel sorry for himself over. In verses 3 and 4 we read, For thou hast cast me into the deep, in the midst of the seas, and the floods compassed about me. All thy billows and thy waves passed over me. Then I said, I am cast out of thy sight, yet I will look again toward the holy temple. Does he wallow in self-pity? No. He decides he's in a bad situation and sums it up neatly in verse 5. The waters compassed me about, even to the soul. The depth closed me round about, and the weeds were wrapped tightly around my head. Jonah knows he's in so deep he can never get himself out of it. Have you ever felt that way? Even in the midst of deep trouble, he can still muster up some faith. In verse 6, we read, I went down to the bottoms of the mountains. The earth with her bars was about me forever. Yet hast thou brought up my life from corruption, O Lord my God. Jonah knows his God can save him. In verse 7, he cries out, When my soul fainted within me, I remembered the Lord, and my prayer came unto thee into thine holy temple. Jonah's attitude had changed from defiance to dependence on God. Jonah remembered that pride and stupidity go hand in hand. In verse 8 he says, They that observe lying vanities forsake their own mercy. This is a moment of repentance for Jonah around which everything changes. Jonah submits to God's will. In verse 9 we hear, But I will sacrifice unto thee with the voice of thanksgiving. I will pay thee that I have vowed. Salvation is of the Lord. And then God saves him from his living death. In verse 10 we read, And the Lord spake unto the fish, and it vomited out Jonah upon dry land. The belly of the fish has one very crucial life-giving lesson for a person: repentance. Without it, there's no change and no deliverance. Many spend time in the fish's belly over and over again, only to feel sorry for themselves over and over again. The Bible explains that this isn't the kind of sorrow that releases a person. In 2 Corinthians chapter 7, verses 9 and 10, we can read, Now rejoice, not that you were made sorrowful, but that you were made sorrowful to the point of repentance. For you were made sorrowful according to the will of God, so that you might not suffer loss in anything through us. For sorrow, that is according to the will of God, produces a repentance without regret, leading to salvation, but the sorrow of the world produces death. Blaming others for your problems, putting hope in your own resources or someone else's like your lawyers, or engaging in magical thinking like, once I'm out of this situation, I'll be able to change, those are all lying vanities. Jonah came to realize this. Have you? The reason people get caught up in endless destructive cycles is that they never experience the godly sorrow that brings repentance. Oh, they feel sorry all right, sorry for themselves. Unlike Jonah, there are those unfortunates who will not sacrifice their twisted pride and self-will and give over to God, no matter how many times they end up in the belly of the fish. Selfishness is the first sacrifice a man must make to start a new life. In the next part of this series, we'll see how Jonah followed through on his new lease on life.